Don't know what you do.
All right, yes, sir. I must say, beautiful, cool Monday morning here in the city of Abeokuta to all of you there. Listening to the Daybreak Show on Rock City 101.9 FM, the voice of the people. Yes, sir, the last week or the last days of the second month of the year 2018. Citizens Forum this morning. Dele Ayodo is my name.
And I am Toby Joseph. Well, like I mentioned earlier, we'll be looking at the challenges of the killer herdsmen and the face-off between these herdsmen or cattle rearers and farmers and host communities. A lot has been said about this security challenge that is snowballing into something that is even getting international attention. You would recall that the Benue State governor has frequently lamented this particular situation in his state is gradually becoming peculiar to Benue State. Before now, it was a very turbulent situation in a Plateau State. So many other states have had their own fair share or unfair share, whichever way you look at it, of this situation. The federal government has come up with different policies, different situations or proposals, as it were, coming from the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Chief Audu Ogbe. The recent one has been the issue of ranching, which of course is alien to the nomadic culture of these cattle rearers. It's not alien to cattle farmers, and it's not alien to some very sophisticated farms in Nigeria. But to these nomadic cattle rearers, it's very alien to them. They even believe that the Constitution has empowered them to have this grazing route, and you are the one encroaching on these grazing routes, and so you should be the one to give way, or better still, understand and accommodate them. Now, beyond all this, how do we tackle it so that everyone goes about their businesses, make profit, and of course contribute their own quota to the economy, and of course stop the bloodshed and bloodletting that has characterized these clashes? We have someone very qualified to look at this issue with us in the studio, a professor of animal physiology. He retired from the Federal University of Agriculture at Abeokuta, Funab, 4 years ago. He owns his own cattle ranch in Okpeji here in Abeokuta, the state capital. I'm talking of no one else but Professor Olusegun Osinowo. You're welcome, Professor Osinowo.
Thank you very much.
All right, before the first question goes to Professor Shinowa, it's also important to remind us that more than any other agitation in Nigeria today, more than what MASOB and IPOB is doing in the southeast, more than what the Niger Delta militants are doing in the south side, even more than what Boko Haram is doing up north, the issue of this killer cattle herdsmen, it's more than any other thing capable of bringing down the country. In actual fact, Benue people have said if this is not resolved, there will be no election next year in the land. I'm sure the people in Yewa North will also be thinking in that direction. The people in Odeda local government here in Ogun State may also be thinking in that direction as their own protest towards the inability, seeming inability of government to resolve it. The police are now battling or facing this as part of another crime facing them in their call to duty. Professor Oshinowo is experienced in this field. He holds a ranch. He's also faced or he's also tested the act or the bitter pill from these herdsmen. So appropriately, we'll be looking at issues around these herdsmen and security in our land. Professor Oshinowo, let me first ask you, prior to this discussion, will it be right to describe these people as Fulani herdsmen? I'm sure I'm talking about the ones causing this mayhem.
Majority of the herdsmen are Fulani, but there are other herders or nomadic people in Nigeria. For instance, the Sho Arab. But it's true to say the vast majority are the cattle Fulani.
Let's try and see if somebody like you can help us trace how we got to this. Even in areas like Yewa North, where they've had it for a long time, most times the battle, the crisis is about ownership of the land, basically, and then grown. Not that herders will kill, shoot at people, burn houses like we now have. This did not appear to be a common thing until 2015. So how did we get there? Is it true that the coming in of a Fulani man aided this?
No, that is not true. Absolutely not true. This problem has been there in Nigeria for at least 80 years. If you go into the Northern Nigerian law reports, you will see many reports of court cases of herdsmen damaging farmers' farms and the compensations they paid, dating back to the 1920s. It's not something that is new. It's been there. In fact, anywhere you have transhumance, that is the movement of animals in search of pasture on a seasonal basis, or nomadism, where you have people going from place to place in search of pasture for their livestock, they always come in conflict with settled farmers throughout the world. Many countries have been able to control this phenomenon by settling the farmers and discouraging transhumance. But in Nigeria, several efforts have also been made. The first grazing reserves in Nigeria were established more than 40-50 years ago in northern Nigeria. I'm thinking now of the Runka Cattle Grazing Reserve in the north central area. And efforts have been made to settle the cattle Fulani, but it has not been successful. You see, nomadism is both a culture and a livelihood. And sometimes it's difficult to separate the two. I will give an example. There was a program in Kaduna State to try to settle some farmers, and there was a milk collection arrangement whereby the processors will go to the Fulanis and collect the milk. They don't have to go about hawking milk. But that project failed because the women protested. The only excuse they have to leave the house is when they go to sell milk. And once you take that away from them, they are housebound and they didn't like it. So that project failed. So there are social aspects to this issue. So it is not true that it's a recent, it's been there, but it's getting progressively worse. And the reasons are not far-fetched. You have population pressures. Areas that were before open grazing areas are now built up areas. You have more states. In the past, we had just 3 regions. Now we have 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. So there is more urbanization. And that's why we are beginning to see more of these conflicts. Another major reason is climate change. As the Sudan Savannah area, the Sahelian area gets drier, because that's where you have the largest concentration of these graziers, these nomadic people. There is that pressure to move southwards. And so that's why we are increasingly seeing more and more grazing activity in the southern area where you have pasture for a longer period of time.
Okay, you said it's because the north, the Sahelian area is getting dried up. Some people have said it's because the leaves here, what they see the animals eat here, is more nutritious, is richer, healthier than the ones uptown. That's why they come there. Is that true?
Well, if you take a place like Kano where you have 5 months of rains and 7 months of dry season, a point comes when there's really nothing left in the fields to graze and the animals have to move to survive. So the primary motivation for movement is the search for green pastures. And since the rainy season lasts longer in the south, there's that tendency for this seasonal movement southwards, and then when the rains start in another year, they move back north. But that would be a simplistic look at it, because you have different kinds of cattle producers. Some are semi-settled, some are completely nomadic. So usually we don't have much problem with the Fulanis that are virtually settled. They have a fixed homestead, they just graze their cattle around. People know them, they are known to the community. And then you have those that are the real seasonal migrants. They don't know anybody, they just come in, they don't respect the culture, they don't respect
they
anybody.
Don't understand the culture.
And they are very fierce, and they are armed. So
where do you think they get the arms from? Because that's another issue we've not been able to solve. Where do they get those kind of sophisticated arms from?
Okay, again, there's a little bit of culture here. Typically, a herdsman moves about with at least a sword. Whereas the communities here in the south, usually we don't go armed. So if there is conflict, already there is an advantage on one side and a disadvantage on the other side. But what we are seeing more of recently is this phenomenon of bearing of arms, sophisticated weapons. It's been creeping in. Those who are listening will remember about 10 years back at towards Igbuora, there used to be incidents of armed robbery by some cattle Fulani. This has progressively gotten worse. Now we have a lot of the kidnappers residing in the forests, and many of them are related to this Fulani. They know the bushes of Nigeria better than anybody because they move through it. They even know the southwest better than the southwesterners. Especially where we have most of our little towns and villages, they have been abandoned. People have moved to the cities, and these people have moved in to settle there, and they know the nooks and crannies of this zone. So they have that knowledge of the geography. They are better armed. Usually our own community were not armed. And as I said, seasonally, you see these fierce-looking ones that come in. Those are the ones that tend to bear dangerous weapons. That is an aspect of this issue. There are social aspects, but we need to look at these issues one by one. The Fulanis are not all bad. The farmers are not all good. There are two sides to this story.
All right. In looking at the security aspect also, some have said when an average Nigerian or citizen of a country has the inalienable right to protect or defend himself, why would it be wrong for a herder to also do same?
Well, there are laws in our statute books concerning bearing of arms by non-security personnel. If you want to carry a gun, it has to be licensed. And invariably, it will just be a hunting gun. It wouldn't be a sophisticated submachine gun. It won't be an AK-47.
AK-47.
I don't think any police will license anybody to carry that. But these people, they also have problems. For instance, cattle rustling. You see, the social aspects of nomadism, it has to be studied in this country. Those people herding the cattle are not necessarily the owner of the cattle.
I see.
The owners may be emirs or big people residing in a big city, and these people are just caretakers. You see young children herding cattle, you see these guys in the bush for months. They are in the forests, in the fringes of villages and towns. So they have to protect themselves against wild animals and against cattle rustlers, because there are also Fulani who don't have, they are poor, they are looking for ways to make it, and they will gladly steal anybody's cattle if they can get away with it. That is largely what is happening in a place like Zamfara. There's a lot of cattle rustling there. Another dimension people need to look at is this afforestation programs in the north. If you look at the major forests in the north, the Sambisa, there's a security crisis. Around Biningwari, there's another forest there. There's a security crisis. That forest extends all the way to around Zamfara. So these people, they use these forests as hideouts. When they steal cattle, and they are even more vicious. Recently in Zamfara, I think they killed over 40 people.
Now, Prof. Now, this makes it more complex. This is an issue of cattle rustlers that come in from our porous borders into the country, from neighboring countries. Now, that is an issue of not only failure of security agencies, but also the immigration officials, which of course they will always tell you that we have so many porous borders and also so many places where we do not have the personnel to man those borders. Now, how do we tackle this? Looking at this immigration problem, the ECOWAS Charter, which also makes it almost impossible for you to gate our West African neighbors.
Thank you. Apart from the ECOWAS Charter on Free Movement of Goods and People, there is a special protocol called the ECOWAS Protocol on Transhumans, agreed to in 1998, that allows the herdsmen to move freely across West Africa. From Senegal to Nigeria, they are free to move in with their livestock. So unless Nigeria pulls out from that treaty, we are obliged to allow all these foreign herdsmen to come in because we are signatories to that treaty. That's an aspect. So it's not all the fault of the border patrol people, the immigration and so on. By law, those people have the right to move across.
Law.
Yes,
that actually
a treaty
enables it.
Yes, that allows herdsmen, whether they are from Niger or from Burkina Faso or anywhere. And there are good and bad aspects to it. For instance, if you go to Mubi in Adamawa State, one of the largest international cattle markets is there in Mubi. And during the market days, you will see stalls. The stalls in Mubi cattle market are by countries. You see cattle from Sudan, you see cattle from Chad, you see cattle from Niger, you see from Central Africa, from all these countries. And you see trailers parked. In fact, contrary to what many people think, most of the beef we consume in Nigeria are not produced in Nigeria. They are produced in all these foreign countries. And you see trailers by the evening moving with hundreds of stock down to Port Harcourt, Enugu, Lagos, Ibadan. So there is a huge international trade in cattle.
Now, Professor Osinowo, if this is so, if the market is that vast, as we try to provide solutions to try and see how best to resolve this, mention has been made of cattle ranch as a solution, root grazing as preferred by Benue State and other states is a solution, and of course some have even just said outright caging them, go and buy it. Like you said, if it's maybe you want to go, you go and buy. Which of these solutions do you think will best resolve this crisis?
Thank you. Like any complex problem, there is no easy solution. There are things we can try. You see, the thing about Nigeria is that there's probably no solution we are thinking of now that has not been tried. The grazing reserve approach has been tried, but I would recommend, for instance, starting from the simple things. For instance, an enlightenment campaign by radio and group discussions at the local government level and so on, community levels. Let's call this grazers. Let's discuss. If you want to graze peacefully in our area, these are the rules. You must not enter our farms. You enter our farms, you have to pay compensation. You see, the local government should start to do their work. There should be bylaws guiding all these things.
But if you look at the Benue experience, one would say law will not solve this problem.
Okay, that's
or
why
enacting a law will not solve.
That's why I'm advocating discussions. Sometimes when we understand each other, they know if they are to be able to stay in an area, they should cause minimum disruption to life in that area. I think that's just a sensible thing. The other thing is that there should be an end to impunity. You see, arrest and prompt prosecution of offending herdsmen by the security agencies. Once people know if they break the rule, they will be arrested. Of course, they will check. That will also act as a check, rather than the present situation where there is a lot of impunity. Also, the issue of restitution. When you damage people's crops, you have to pay for it. And in fact, in Okpeji, where I am, to a certain extent, that is done. Anytime anybody's cattle breaks into any farm, compensation is paid.
Who organizes this compensation?
There's a Fulani association. They have their Seriki, yes. And once you identify the offender, compensation will be paid
adequately.
Yes.
But Okpeji area appears to be one of the areas where this crisis is active.
As I said, there are.
So why I said it, because if you say that you have this functioning system of justice there, and they will still have continuous report
Okpeji,
all the time.
We have the people who have settled. We know them. They come to pray in the mosque every Friday. We know their location. Yes. But seasonally, especially as the dry season progresses, you see strange groups coming in from God knows where. And their fears, they don't talk to anybody. They just stop on your farm and settle there. 3 days later, they are gone again. So it's difficult to really hold them to account because they are just in transition.
And the Fulani leaders there too cannot do anything to it. They can't hold them. They can't identify them.
They are also afraid of them.
Oh.
Okay. now, Prof.
They're also afraid of them.
Prof,
so
let us
this is not as easy. Then also, we talked about ranches. Yes. Probably the owners of the cattle, they have enough money. They are really rich people. They can establish ranches. They can buy land. They can develop it into ranches. But it's not for the ordinary Fulani person because ranching is capital intensive. You have to buy a lot of land, you see. And cattle requires a lot of land. In the southwest here, you need at least a hectare to hold about 2 heads of cattle for a whole year. So you to do anything meaningful, you need tens of hectares. Okay. Then you have to fence it. Also, I talked about these laws. I talked about withdrawal from ECOWAS Treaty on transhumance. I talked about enforcement of extant laws on bearing of arms. If people are bearing arms illegally, the security forces should arrest them and deal with them appropriately. Then my appeal to the cattle Fulani is that they must respect the laws and culture of the host communities if they want to stay long. I think that's what is happening in Benue. There's a lot of bad behavior, poor hosts, and herdsmen. Then there should be reinvestment of the stupendous wealth that is made from the cattle trade. A place like Lagos that probably you have over 1,000 cows slaughtered every day. If the average cost is 100,000, that is already a lot of money. And then you think of that on an annual basis, a lot of money is being made. But those who are making the money are sitting in their comfortable homes far away. The people we see are the foot soldiers. So if we must solve this problem, we must identify those cattle owners and they must take responsibility. Also, the children going about the bush, grazing these cattle, is giving rise to a lot of social problems, drug addiction, and all kinds of antisocial behavior. You see, armed robbery is evolving into kidnapping, and we need to do something about it. These children must be educated. They can be trained in animal science and veterinary medicine. That will be useful to their trade. But we cannot allow them to become a problem to the society. And there should be empowerment scheme for young graduates who want to engage in cattle ranching, especially in the southwest here. And we need more research, because the primary motivation for movement is the search for feed. Now, there is a lot of feed resources that could be packaged properly and released to these animals in the dry season. For instance, the crop residues and so on and so forth. If we can do that, they may not have even the reason to want to move. These are some of the solutions.
Okay, Prof. Prof, let us look at insinuations in some quarters. Can you hear me? All right. Let us look at insinuation in some quarters that there's a fifth columnist hand in this recent surge or increase in this mindless killings of these herders, especially in the north central part of the country. Do you agree with this school of thought?
Well, in the case of Nigeria, you see, we cannot forget our history. We cannot forget our history, because if you remember, 300 years ago, there were no Fulanis in Nigeria. We know what happened. We know the way the caliphate was established in Sokoto. And we know the transformation in the political system in the north, where the Hausa states were overrun by the Fulanis. We know the story of Ilorin. People are very suspicious, naturally. So, it's only a fool we forget his past. So, there is that historical suspicion of any movement by this particular group. So, it's natural. It may not be real, but it has historical antecedents. So I don't blame anybody who is suspicious.
Now let us take this further. There are people who believe that even countries who are even far away from us, like Iran, Saudi Arabia, even have a hand in all this, because there are people who also are part of this trade. It's a long chain, they believe, and so they have the opinion that someone who is a Muslim and at the ends of affairs in the country Nigeria, somebody like President Muhammad Buhari, should not be seen to be fighting brothers in court.
Okay, you see, it's true that our President Buhari at one time was the chairman for the Fulani herdsmen across West Africa, from Senegal to Nigeria to Cameroon. So, and people remember his intervention in Oyo State during the time of Governor Lamadeshino.
Yes.
So, like I said, people don't forget history. They remember. Anything we do now, it has a consequence for the future. So we should all be careful. And on people's fears, let me just say this. We cannot deny there is fear of Islamization. We can also not deny that there is fear of Christianization. It depends on in which community you are. So we need to address all these social issues as a nation. Once everybody feels at home and we can trust each other, all these problems will disappear. So it has a lot to do with our mindsets, how we relate to each other as a nation. And the Fulani aspect is just a manifestation of that.
Keep sending your message to 32120, that's the short code. And of course, our Twitter handle is at RockCityFM. Of course, you can also participate using the Facebook page. We'll check them by these cattle and nomads rearing their cattle across the different lands. We have a professor of animal husbandry with us, Professor Olusegun Osinowo. Prof, what do you want to say about the government federal government's proposal of a colony, cattle colony?
Sometimes, I was privileged to work at the National Animal Production Research Institute of Ahmadu Bello University. That's the foremost research institute on livestock production in Nigeria. I was privileged to work there for 18 years. Me, I'm keeping. What I'm saying is this. The Southwest is well endowed. We're the largest producers of poultry and piggery meat and pork in Nigeria, the Southwest. We produce a lot of eggs. But you see, we're so interdependent. Yes, we produce the most poultry, the most pigs, but the feed that produces collapse if they don't get a maize from the north for the poultry feed or the soybean. So we need each other. Most of the eggs are also carried back to the north. So the herdsmen, they also need the south, because the average herdsman doesn't eat meat. The markets are all in the south, but they produce the cattle. So that's how it is for most of these animal products that we produce in Nigeria. The market is somewhere else, the producers are elsewhere. So that's one of the main reasons why Nigeria must remain integrated. If you break up Nigeria, we will all suffer. That's just the fact.
All right, if you just joining us, it's Citizens from on the Daybreak Show. This beautiful Monday morning. We have MCU.
Thanks for still being there, listening to Rock City 101.9 FM, Daybreak Show Citizens Forum this morning, looking at the menace of the cattle herdsmen, the insecurity challenges across the land here. Well, we have with us a professor of animal husbandry, Professor Olusegun Osinowo. Straight on, will permit you to be a part of it, opening the different medium of communication, the telephone, the shortcode, the Twitter handle, and of course our Facebook page. But just let's remind you of the simple rules. There should be no insult or abuse on any individual or personal as you make your comment. Please don't come over with claims that cannot be substantiated. Deliberate falsehood, maligning of individual or group, or propaganda, please, we will not take. And 2 minutes, that's the maximum time allocated for each call. Ensure that you also move away from the radio when you are putting that call through. It distorts flow of communication. God bless you.
0809-868-7344 and 0909-146-9670.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Tobi. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning.
I'm Ola Usuwadi. I'm calling from Basala, Abeokuta. Prof, it is unfortunate we are grappling with a situation where we are not suspicious and so conscious about. When we consider the population of cattle we have in Nigeria and see to manage it is still a problem, then it can still be considered that we have another thing coming. Let's consider with our each population as a nation and our size, because one of the abysmally low level of cattle or ruminants in the world compared to other nations. Unless we have 3 million cattle, while some countries like South Africa can boast of 20 million. And all this is not what they have just in the state in the US like California. The dangerous aspect that is faced now will further do a lot of damage to our animal husbandry. This is a factor that needs to be considered if we want to really address food security in Nigeria. For one, our protein consumption is dangerously low. That's why this asthma issue should not be a national emergency. It should be solved with minimal delay. We need animal protein. We are already suffering chronic malnutrition. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll take another call. Just take note. We will let's take them in parts. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
0809. Good morning.
Morning, Dele. Good morning, Tobi.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, Prof. Sir. I'm kind of Good morning. Prof. Sir. My question is, do you foresee any change in the treaties that allowed for ECOWAS states allowing one country to flock to another country? Given what is happening now in Nigeria, and given the real practical help that we are able to probably see in Ghana recently, whereby they flocked out all cows that they found on their streets, even while those people, the herdsmen, were carrying AK-47. Can that state, probably that kind of things be seen happening here in Nigeria? Can we adopt same method or process that Ghana did probably approach the kind of killing that we have now in Nigeria? Because I believe that it's just because of lack of seriousness and overconfidence that has made these people to continue to maintain a kind of balance or moderate, regular, probably accommodating we ourselves. But our government is now asking us to accommodate the killers. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
0909146 9670. Hello.
All right, we're sorry, you can call back. We lost your call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Who's on the line?
Hello, sir.
Yes, we are with you.
It's big God. The only question I want to ask is that where are we going? Where is our way in this Nigeria? Go to our hospitals. We have one doctor for thousands of patients, and we still thinking that they will succeed. Look at what is happening in the city. State police, we are talking nobody. If you go to Adatona or any other police on to the police, they no go for it, they no go get tire for motor, and maybe their tire will not good. Security in Nigeria. Our leaders, they are the same people that come and tell us the same story. I think it's around the corner. Look at what is happening when someone that is coming. Our guest was saying about establishing school. How can you establish the school that the people coming when they come to Nigeria? When you see them now coming, they don't know when they enter Nigeria. You say want to establish a school for invisible people. May God help us. Our president have the places that something happened. What happened to your state? Ogun State, Anambra State, or that state? You see when things happen, they will still go back there and try to do it. Look at our civil defense. They close by 4. Their security people, they have guns. By 4 o'clock, they close and go home. What will happen by 5, 6, 7? In the state of one police for 1,000 people. When are we going to succeed this? When things happen to one big man, they will try to announce it. So the masses are dying.
Thank you.
So, for one question, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. Hello?
Yes, your question.
Yes. Are you thinking that this is not the same Boko Haram people that is disguising yourself in Fulani?
All right, thank
Because
you.
I know they were captured.
Daddy,
Thank
2
you.
minutes is up.
That's
Thank
your
you.
question. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Who's on the line? Hello, who's on the line?
Hello.
Yes, we
Mr.
are.
Mustafa said from Agbado.
All right.
You see, the failures of this administration teach us how to realize the role of talented people in government. They are proved to be incompetent due to
0909146 967
Hello.
0.
Good morning, Tobi.
Morning. After this call, we'll move away to allow Prof to respond. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Dele. How are you doing, sir?
Fine, thank you, sir.
Professor Osinowo, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, please.
And you are well done, sir. God bless you in Jesus' name, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Pastor Shola Makinde. I am calling from Owu Kingdom. We are going to here. Now, Professor, there is no point sugarcoating a bitter cooler. The present federal government has failed in its primary responsibility of protecting life and properties, which I believe is a cardinal constitutional responsibility which he has sworn to carry out. That is number one. Number two, those who are unleashing terror, killings and displacing of rural farming communities across the country are Fulani cattle herdsmen. There's no other name to call them. They are Fulani herdsmen. They are the ones unleashing terror on farmers and farmland in this country. Now, recently, 73 people were given mass burial in Benue, believed to have been carried out by Fulani cattle herders. These Fulani people are being backed by powerful men in the federal government circle there. That is the truth. So now, Professor, my question is this. Don't you think that restructuring this country to true federalism will put an end to these security challenges we are facing in this country today? Thank you so very much. God bless Ross City. And no matter what is happening, God bless Nigeria in Jesus' name.
All right.
Amen. Thank you. All right, Prof, you want to quickly address those issues raised by our callers?
Thank you very much. The first question was on the productivity of Nigerian cattle. This was the question by Mr. Kola. And the need for safeguarding animal protein supply in Nigeria. Well, my general view is that it is not only in cattle production that we are backward. We are backward in nearly everything. Our agriculture is still peasant agriculture. And that also goes for cattle production. We don't have the modern systems of production. Most of our production systems are still the old traditional ones. And they are outliving their usefulness. They don't produce at high efficiencies. They have to move about because of the nature of the animals they keep and the fact that they do not want to invest in what will make them to produce at a higher level. So, turning back to cattle, we need to move from transhumance to cattle ranching. That is a definite goal to improve our livestock production. Botswana produces a lot of beef, much more than Nigeria, and they export a lot to Europe because they have invested in cattle ranching and modern systems of cattle production. We can also do the same. But by the time we do that, I can tell you that it wouldn't be the same people who will be producing the cattle. Because for ranching, you need to be settled in one place. You need to invest your money to grow the grass. You need to give proper veterinary care to your livestock. And you need to sell your animals when they are due to be sold. You don't hold them as things of social value. So the mindset about cattle production has to change. Unless we encourage our young people to take up cattle ranching, and we organize empowerment programs to back them up, I don't see how that transition can be made. One other possibility is that the cattle owners themselves, they are not the people who are grazing the cattle. The cattle owners, as I said earlier, they're in big cities, they are emirs, they are big men. They have the resources to go into cattle ranching. And some of them are going into cattle ranching. So maybe they should have a transitional period where they are told that, look, either you go into cattle ranching or your cattle will no longer be allowed to roam about. And in the long term, settling the nomadic people will be a plus for the industry. The second question was on changing the ECOWAS treaty, ECOWAS protocol on free movement of herdsmen across West Africa. Well, Nigeria voluntarily signed up to that protocol. If Nigeria is now going to withdraw from that protocol, it has to follow due process, probably involving the federal government and the National Assembly. And I hope they are able to move to pull out of that protocol. But that protocol works both ways. There are positive aspects, there are negative aspects. My personal opinion is we should minimize the negative aspects. Most of the cattle we consume in Nigeria are not produced in Nigeria. That's what most of us don't realize. They come in from Niger, from Chad, from Central African Republic, from as far as Sudan and Burkina Faso into Nigeria. Most of those cattle we see at the cattle markets in Kara, in Lagos and so on, they are not Nigerian cattle. So if we now pull out of this treaty, how do those animals come in? I can tell you the price of beef is going to go up. You see, those are positive aspects. We are promoting West African trade. The negative aspect is the violence that accompanies some of these herdsmen that come into Nigeria. And that's where we need to be up and doing. The protocol does not say they can come in with their weapons. So our immigration, our border patrol people, our military, we must deploy to be able to contain that threat. I think that's their primary responsibility. I think they should just sit up and do it. Mr. Delano asked where we are going. He talked about nomadic schools. Well, I can tell you, if Nigeria wants peace, we must educate the children of the Fulani, the cattle Fulani. Because right now, in most of our forests in the southwest, they are there, they are involved in drug addiction, they are the poverty face of nomadism. The people who are benefiting are the emirs and the big people who own the cattle. And one way to break this cycle is to get these children and ensure that they are educated. You can train them in livestock production related courses. That's not an issue. That will even help. But to leave them and ignore them in the forest. So I think the previous government that put a premium on and educating the nomadic, the Fulani child, I think it's a step in the right direction. We cannot afford to have them illiterate, running about the bush where they are susceptible to all kinds of indoctrination. No. If we educate our youths, then they'll be more difficult to control and indoctrinate. Pastor Shola Makinde, thank you for your comments. The issue is that there are political dimensions, there are social dimensions, but each time we face a problem, we run back to restructuring. I think we need to be careful. Like I mentioned, Nigeria is so integrated. That's what most people forget. Nigeria is so integrated that if you disrupt this present political arrangement where there's free movement across all states, all of us will suffer, not just one section. All of us. You will recall the time that there was the crisis in Lagos and tomatoes and peppers were stopped from coming down to the southwest. You remember how we suffered? But they also suffered because the market is here in the south. Yes, they produce it, but the producer also needs a market. So we need each other. If there is no market, they probably will not produce. The same thing with cattle. They don't consume much beef in the north, but we do in the south. So we need each other, if I may put it that way. So whatever is broken in the system, let us fix it and let the system run. And we should do things that will enhance Nigerian unity, economic viability and things like that. Breaking into small units and closing our borders will not solve anything. Thank you.
Okay, do we have messages to add to this?
Yes.
To this, there is also need for developing a comprehensive policy framework which will allow comprehensive and mutual benefits to both herdsmen and farmers. If we talk of plausible solutions to the herdsmen-farmers clashes, that the first should be establishment of grazing reserves. This would definitely provide opportunity for practicing a more limited form of pastoralism and deployment of modern technology. At Gab, but I think something can be done to check the excesses. Cattle rearing is a personal business, not government, and should be treated as such. Adedayo Adeyemi says, good morning, our guest. Please, do you think government is doing enough to curtail the menace of the herdsmen? If yes or no, why? Muideen Abimbola tweeted this. I support one of the solutions as postulated by Professor Osinowo, amendment of the ECOWAS Treaty, which allows for free movement of the herdsmen across countries. There should be a strict guideline. The herdsmen must sign a peace deal with their host countries and communities. It is true that every owner of property has the right to defend his property, but this does not imply taking arms yourself to defend your property. There are established government machineries, that is, the public security agencies, who are saddled with such responsibilities. All right. There are no simple solutions. There are complex social issues surrounding nomadic cattle rearing, grazing, and crisis. These are interesting perspectives by Professor Shinawo. Kudos. All right, Delani Robert tweeted this. It is a known fact today that ATPC Nigeria needs a strong, cohesive force to clean the stain and weather the storm of political program of the senseless killings by the headsmen, highly devalued quality of lives occasioned by the rising cost of virtually everything in Nigeria. What happened to the killings in Zamfara by headsmen of Fulanis, NSAS, Benue massacre, Chibok girls? NSAS trended for weeks, but has anything useful changed since then? No. A weak directive was sent out to the SARS, but who complied? So, trending or not, government that wants to do good will do good. Alright, keep tweeting at RockCityFM is the Twitter handle. Um, 32120 remains the shortcode number. All you have to do is to type rock, leave a space, type your message, and include your name. Prof, you may add these messages and then you can react. Moshood says, if you're saying Fulani do not exist in Nigeria 300 years ago, what about we Yorubas? Is this not a fallacy? I think the best way of tackling this problem of killer headsmen is for every state to protect their citizens, like the Yorubas should invite the OPC and Bekoya and local hunters, etc. This will reduce the killings in the southwest. Thanks. Piles from Shajes sent to that one. Good morning to our guest, our own Professor Olusegun Osinowo. Solutions to the problems of headsmen lies in the sincerity of the government to provide social amenities at every grazing reserve. Cattle owners should be made to invest in the feeding and planting of pastures for the cattle. Laws should be made and enforced to compensate for any farm destroyed. Even headsmen and cattle owners should be brought to book. I say no to cattle colonies. Wale sent in that one. Ikechukwu Lisa says it is unfortunate that the government are yet to find the lasting solutions of these killer headsmen, or is it because we have a government that is occupied by sons and daughters of Fulanis? If that may be the reason, then we have no choice than to vote them out come 2019. Good morning, Prof. The cattle nomadic Fulani that I was privileged to know more than a little about in present Zamfara state carried swords and bows and arrows for self-protection. Prof, how did AK-47 and AK-49 evolve along the cattle business over time? May we attach criminalities as robberies and kidnapping to sophistication of cattle rearing? If so, who are likely to be their backbones? Is Boko Haram free of this trend? Kade from Randa sent in that one. Prof, you want to quickly respond?
Thank you very much. I think one common thread that runs through most of these comments is the need for enhanced security in Nigeria. Because most of the issues raised are related to security and enforcement of the law. Yeah. So there's criminality in every group in Nigeria, and no group should be exempt from facing the consequences of antisocial behavior. So the ECOWAS protocol, okay, maybe it facilitates the movement across borders of these herdsmen, but it doesn't say that they should carry weapons. And the need for enforcement is on our own side to ensure that anybody coming into Nigeria is adequately policed to ensure that they don't constitute a danger to our own environment. We should be more security conscious. This is just a case in point. There are so many other issues of kidnapping, armed robbery, and so on and so forth. But I can tell you that the Fulani herdsmen farmer conflict predates even Nigerian independence. It's a long, anywhere you have nomadism, it always comes into conflict with settled populations. So this thing is a problem we can solve by drawing lessons from other countries that have tackled similar problems. The bottom line is that ultimately, nomadism or transhumance would have to be banned, ultimately. But it cannot be immediate, because unless we are able to provide alternatives to those who are practicing it right now. What do we want them to do? That's their livelihood. So we must look at short, medium, and long-term solutions. And all these ideas have been brought up. No simple solutions, but just a compendium of solutions. Senseless killings, all these are security issues. I said that Fulanis were not in Nigeria 200 years ago. The predominant cattle type in Nigeria at that time are the Muturu, the West African shorthorn, Bostaros brachyceros. This type we see in Ikpoki and Badagry area. Those are the ones that were here in Nigeria before, and they are still there. And you see the way we keep cattle in the southwest and even all along the south coast up to Benin Republic, you see this breed. They are kept by farmers. They are tethered. These farmers own maybe 3 or 4, and you walk around the bush, you see they are tied up. They are tethered. That's how we keep cattle in the southwest. And we still keep it there. If you go to Ipokia today, you will see. If you go to Ayodo, you will still see them. You see? So it is not true that without the Fulani there will be no cattle production. There has always been. Of course, they are now dominating because all these herds came in. And I don't think we can send them off because they are also Nigerians. Those who are foreigners, the law enforcement should take care of them in terms of ensuring that they maintain our laws. And in the long run, this system of production is not sustainable. We need to do something so that there is a transition from nomadism to ranching. But it cannot happen in a day. We need a program. And it involves education, it involves security, it involves financing, and so on and so forth. So these are issues that we need to sit down and work on.
All right, Prof, we might need to maybe snappy. There are a lot of tweets here, questions that are begging for answers. Kule Gab says Fulani herdsmen were told that they own Asha village in Komi land of Yowa North in Ogun State. That's the reason for killing there. How is this possible? Adedayo Adeyemi says, good morning, Prof. Please, in your view, can you rate the performance of the change government? Are they doing what is expected to tackle these herdsmen? Akrede Camille says, the existing nomadic educational system is not good enough. It must be modernized with added agricultural technical skills, which will be useful in the field. Yemi Da Vinci tweeted this. People like Professor Osinowo are the kinds of people that should be Minister of Agriculture. His submission shows in-depth knowledge of the sector and the temperament to look at all the attendant possibilities. Kudos, sir. Muideen Abimbola. Another solution is that government should put in place a good security architecture designed to preserve the law, prevent crime, and protect the people. The security agencies need accurate training for the specific assignment of cattle ranches. Leo Leshi Olariwaju says Fulani herdsmen are disturbing them in Begmila War. Those people living in the area and teachers are really panicking. Government should do something now. Muideen Abimbola once again. Also, provision of modern security equipment is also required. Most importantly, the security officers to be deployed for the assignment must be well motivated by way of remuneration and other welfare packages so as to prevent them from being corrupt and dereliction of duty. Does grazing routes include people's farms? Or does it include people's livelihood? Does it include people's lives? Something must be done to check this. Does the treaty include permission for the Fulani herdsmen to carry arms? All right, Operator Abel. Good morning. My own take is that herdsmen and farmers' issue is to ask our government whether sincerely they are taking care of our security agents, buying them the latest weapons, prompt payment of their salaries and allowances, or better welfare. I also suggest increment in their wages. Suleiman Ishaq. Good morning, Prof. I appreciate your objectivity. What are you doing at your end to encourage the students of agriculture to gradually transit from grazing to ranching? At Kule Gab once again, the killings by Fulani herdsmen are more, which make them better terrorists than Boko Haram. But I know something is going to happen soon. Professor Agola, what can be done in our universities of agriculture where cattle are allowed to graze openly within the campuses? disturbing the peace of the community. That's Professor Bolaye. Prof, over to you.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank my colleague, Professor Agbola. Well, FUNAB is one of the largest concentration of specialists in animal production. The College of Animal Science and Livestock Production. It even has a department of pasture and range management. So you have all the expertise, Prof. You know what to do. Listen to them. They will tell you what you can do. And that is actually the problem of Nigeria. Look, there is a lot of expert knowledge available in Nigeria about livestock production. A lot. We have research institutes, we have universities, departments, but nobody listens to them. So my first advice is let the Minister of Agriculture and the presidency listen to their own agricultural research institutes. We have 18 of them, and some of them are for livestock, and they are as good as any institute in the world. But we don't listen to them. We rather go outside and do foolish things, like trying to bring grass from Brazil. So my own grass I plant on my ranch in Okweji here, they were railed to me from Zaria, from National Animal Production Research Institute. I have different types of pasture seeds that I have there. I have Styloxanthus, I have Chloris, I have Bracharia, and they do very well in the southwest here. That knowledge is there. I'm able to use it because I'm aware of it. I think the Federal Ministry of Agriculture should begin to listen to its own scientists, and then most of these problems will not be there, because they are not new problems. They are only getting more aggravated, and they will get worse because the population is increasing. Okay, the areas that the grazers used to use, they are all built up now. Even around Abeokuta, you see how the town has grown. There is no more grazing land in Abeokuta. I think we better tell that to the Fulani people so they don't come here. But the problem is that ultimately, nomadism, transhumanism must be phased out, because they are in conflict with settled agriculture, they are in conflict with high population areas. So that's that. Now, so many issues were raised. APC government not doing enough. It's not only APC government. We've had all kinds of governments since independence. I don't see any of them has done enough, really. I hope the future governments will learn from that and do something about it. A problem, you see, a stitch in time saves 9. Unless we deal with this problem now, it can only get worse. And it has to be solved in a way that is acceptable to all the parties concerned. Nomadic education needs to be modernized, yes, I agree. Security, everything revolves around security. If we need a different architecture to get more security in this country, I think we should explore it. Because security, maintenance, law and order is the first duty of any government. Until we are able to do that, there is no arrangement to work out that will actually be solve this issue. So generally, all I will say is that we have the solutions to these problems in this country. I pray and hope the government will listen to its own experts, and then we will leave all this behind. There are ways of transiting from open grazing to ranching, but it will not happen in a day. It needs a lot of resources. Some of those resources will come from the private sector, because these cattle owners are rich and they are making a lot of money from cattle trade. Some will come from government. There's nothing wrong in supporting Fulani cattlemen, because government runs extension services for crops, so there's nothing wrong if it runs it for livestock also. But it's just extension services. It doesn't mean they are taking over their farming operations. So in general, all I know is that if we all work together, we can solve this problem. Even in the short term, we can minimize it, and then in the long term, we can eliminate it. But ultimately, it has to do with education, reorientation. we must all learn to live together. Nobody should come into another person's community and cause a lot of disruption. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's take this caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Yes,
Good morning, Tobi.
Good morning.
Morning, Dele. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning.
My name is Dr. Uncle. Prof, I like the way you answered one question on restructuring.
Okay.
If your wife did not cook soup very well, you want restructuring. Maybe your child had a very hot night, restructuring. We are trivializing it, making as if a panacea for everything. I don't believe that restructuring will do much because, as you rightly said, and you said it very well, I hope people listen, it will create more problems than we think we know, and we will go back wailing again. Number two is that the issue of this Fulani herdsmen have been overflocked. Fulani herdsmen killed this one. My car cannot start. Fulani herdsmen passed through it, so my car cannot start. The problem is that security has failed us. Period. Whether you are Fulani or Igbo or Hausa herdsman goes into someone's farm, you shouldn't do it. Let us say that criminality is criminality. The emphasis is on Fulani, not herdsmen. Prof, the emphasis on this discussion all over what I've been passing is Fulani. If it was an Igbo herdsman, Yoruba herdsmen, we will not talk about it. And why we have antibodies against Fulanis, perhaps depression is a Fulani. That's all. The operative word is Fulani. If it was Fulani, something, Iroko herdsmen, we would not be quarreling. We should de-emphasize this issue of tribalism and statism, religion. If we get that way, we will not solve any problem. Why is someone coming to my farm? Why is someone breaking to my house? It doesn't matter who you are. Deal with it. We are not dealing with it. Why are we not putting emphasis on that? We are believing in Fulani since we were born. So what is all this Fulani thing? It's because security has broken down in our schools, in our roads, everywhere, and this one happens to be one we are capitalizing on. Let us have on security. Why should some people come into this country without being dealt with? Why?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your submissions. Hello, good morning. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, who's on the line?
Yeah. My name is Solamnik from Bureau.
Okay.
Not much. I want to agree with the guest in there so much. This lady is that we take Nigeria nothing but for a while. If we must get it all in this country. It must only because we find a city or we found an agreement. And we have a problem in the country.
Hello.
I have a problem in the country. If we say okay, we are into marriage where there is a violence, I will say let's keep trying. Someone will die one day. Just want to eat cattle, continue dying. That will not work. Even when you go into ashes, you put all the things on ground, this thing nomadic is the problem. So how the global world, there's nowhere there's not an impression, nowhere there's not an intention. Everybody knows, everybody are in fear of that. We think like they're nothing. Be a brother and show like brother for a while. We must get it right in this country. Insecurity, we've not gotten our own country right. We are talking about ECOWAS. What are you talking about? Then let's cover the government about the ECOWAS country and let's have one president to control the ECOWAS. If people are interested in that, what are we talking about? The right thing must be done. Why will you come into the country with an AK-47 and nobody is checking you? And what are you telling me? The right thing must be done. Insecurity must come into the past. They are inside our bush, of course. We know where they are, we know them. But I don't know why I say the federal government is doing nothing. That's how I'm confined. And you're not doing anything, they should wait. We show them the way.
All right, thank you very much. 2 minutes. Let's have one call, just one call. Hello, good morning. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Good morning. This is Ilelia from Ayodo.
Thank you.
Thank the professor for saying that the Fulani herdsmen they have already taken over. He said it. They have already led us. I thank him for that. In order to check them, I beg, Nigeria to rise up to cop the names of these people. Because if you see them at Ayodo, every third day, they passing by 1 o'clock a.m. to 1:30 p.m. They be going round to Abeokuta area. You go to Florida, along that side I was there. I was along that in Ayodo area. You see these people, these herdsmen, about 100 of them, 100 cows, with their weapons by their side, no security. It was a Yoruba man or Igbo man wearing weapons. The security men will check them. Very people
All right, thank you, Dele. We must end you. Sorry, that's the last call for the day, Professor Osinowo.
They allow them.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. I agree that all hands must be on deck to solve this problem. And the bottom line is there has to be enhanced security so that anybody who breaks the law gets apprehended and faces the music. Also, there needs to be a program to help the herdsmen transit from nomadism and transhumance to cattle ranching. And I want to just say that there is enough expertise in this country. There are people in this country who can monitor the movement of any herd across any part of Nigeria. I don't know why we don't use them. We even have a satellite station, a space agency in Abuja. And Nigeria has satellites in space that can look at this region and track everybody. So I would just appeal that the world we live in now is technologically driven. There are solutions that are there. Let our public officers, the government, the enforcement agencies, make use of all these systems that are available to secure our security, to track movements of anybody across our nation, to ensure that we don't encourage the inflow of dangerous weapons into Nigeria. Overall, it's not a solution that we can achieve in one day. It will take time. But with cooperation amongst everybody and we acting in good faith, I think we can solve this problem. Thank you very much.
All right.
That's the much we can take this morning. Thank you so much for your calls. Thank you so much for your messages, the tweets, and of course the Facebook comments. We want to really appreciate you, Professor Olusegun Osinowo. Thank you so much for finding time to be here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's our show this morning. Join us again tomorrow for another fresh edition. The Daybreak Show kicks off as early as 7 a.m. all the way to 11. I am Tobi Joseph.
I also say a big thank you to all of you who've joined us, who participated via the different method, and of course those of you who just patiently listen and enjoy the show. Dele, Ayodo is my name. I say God bless you all. God bless Nigeria and God bless Rock City.